For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thanks for tuning in on your favorite podcast app. We are going to be talking about Bob Saget. I know it already feels like old school news, but that's the one danger of doing this show on a Friday and then a major story happening on a Saturday or Sunday, right? We just seem out of touch, as though we're not on top of things. But we are. Bob was on the radio with me a couple of years ago, so I'm going to share that story. And Neve Schulman from MTV's Catfish will be joining us a little bit later on. I almost want to go and say, Bob would appreciate this joke. I almost want to go and say, we've got two celebrities on the show today. One will be joining us live. The other, no. See, you know, if you knew Bob's humor, okay, don't even write and say that that's so, just deal with it, okay? No. Truly a comic legend. I mean, Bob, as you've heard the testimonials from everybody, from the comedy world, entertainment world, whoever, I don't think that I've heard one bad word about Bob Saget. So I'm going to share my memories about him coming up in just a moment. And then Neve, on Catfish, you've seen this show, right? If you're not familiar, basically, people write into the show on MTV and say, look, I've been communicating with somebody and I want to know if they're real. I can't figure it out. Can you do this investigation for me? And oftentimes, from what I understand, is that you've even got the people who are lying, aka the catfish. You have people who are doing the lying that reach out to the show to almost do this as like a reverse sort of thing. Now, anyway, point is that the people reach out to the show. How do you not just do basic Googling? Like, I feel if you are connected to the internet, if you have the ability to create a social media page, if you have the knowledge of this show, if you have the knowledge of the show Catfish, and you know what they do and you see what they do, why do you need to go on the show? It's like, find it out your own damn self, really. I mean, I'm not trying to get Neve fired. I'm not trying to get the show canceled, because it's fascinating to watch. I'll be completely honest. I laugh at these people every week. But you just think that with people, especially having a lot of time at home and being on social media, a lot of time on your hands is what I'm getting at, that people would dig. I mean, if somebody came to me and messaged me, well, you know what, do I have time to go on this rant, or should I do it after? I'll do it right now, and then we'll talk about Bob Saget after that. Okay, so years ago, and I've told this story on the show, somebody reached out to me on our radio shows. And it happens all the time. You know, we'd have a web poll question, or we'd have some sort of a weekly debate or discussion, and people would email me all the time. I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't always flirty. It was just people, same thing when I live tweet Bachelor or Bachelorette, right? These people just respond to me and we have a conversation going. Well, years ago, somebody reached out to the radio show, and we had months of back and forth emails. They started out really short emails, and then they got longer and longer and more personal and more in-depth. And then all of a sudden I get this friend request on Facebook, and it's the name was familiar. I was like, okay, well, that's somebody who listens to the radio show. Well, sure enough, this person's profile is a hot, tattooed, tanned Brazilian muscle god. And I was just like, okay, yeah, here we go. Somebody fake just adding me for that. Turns out it was the person with whom I was emailing all this time on the radio show. And again, I'm just sitting there going, my luck, it's not this person, right? It's not. I was single at the time. I was kind of like, all right, fine, whatever. We have some discussion, kind of get to know each other. And like I've learned from Catfish, where it's just sort of like, it's too good to be true. This is not the person. It's not. And so I cut to the chase, and I was like, hey, let's video chat. Let's talk. Because if this is a catfish, they're going to have those excuses. They're going to tell you why they can't, or, oh, my phone doesn't work, or I don't have a camera, or what, just as you see on the show. So I thought, okay, I'm going to bust this asshole for lying to me. It's not him, whatever. Sure as shit. Wouldn't you know it? All of a sudden the video connects, and I'm just like, holy crap, this is the real guy. This is the guy that I've been emailing, who's listening to me on the radio from, halfway in the southern hemisphere, is listening to me, emailing me. And now we're talking. I had never really done video chats with a stranger like that before. I just never had. I wasn't of interest to me. And also, the technology was still relatively new back then. So here we are all these years later, still having a good time. Still trying to make babies. It just hasn't took yet. But anyway, sometimes you share too much on a Friday. We're going to take a break. My thoughts on Bob Saget on the Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on the Scribble. All right, so let me talk now about Bob Saget. See, this is what's so weird, right? Like, now it just seems like it's old news already at this point. I mean, I'm not breaking the news. Hey, did you hear that Bob Saget? We all know that, right? It was Sunday night. We were all shocked by it, and some of us still are. Now, here's the deal, though. We have such a fast-paced news cycle that me talking about it now on this Friday the 14th just seems like, oh, well, JB's out of touch. Oh, he's only hearing about it now. No, our podcast is out on Fridays, right? So there's really no way that I could have said anything. Bob was on the radio with me 2 years ago. He was on tour, and he was also having a new ABC show premiere. And so we actually kind of talked about both things. The reason that he was on the radio with me was to promote the ABC show. And then he just happened to be going to my hometown a couple months later. And so, of course, we talked about that. Now, because a celebrity is on my show, I think that the natural instinct for people is to go and say like, oh, well, he knows Bob, or oh, they're friends. But let me be honest. Bob probably had never heard of me until he was handed the note, call this dude Jeremy at such and such time to promote the ABC show. Okay, so I'm prefacing the story with that. I don't want to make it seem like, oh yeah, Bob and I were friends. Oh yeah, he knew me. He wouldn't recognize me on the street. Yeah, that's me being real. So here's what I can tell you, though, about my interactions with Bob, right? Because all of a sudden, as soon as, a celebrity, Betty White, right? We did a special show about Betty's death. I was at her 90th birthday, and so people just assume that I have this connection with Betty, which, it was really a life-changing moment for my career anyway. So, it's still, that event still holds a space in my heart. But, and after so many years of conducting celebrity interviews, talking with them, meeting them, whoever, they all kind of blur together. I sort of make the comment that it's like if you flip burgers, if you work at McDonald's for a living, the first couple times maybe it's like, hey, this is my first burger that I'm serving. Same thing with me. Oh, it's the first celebrity I'm interviewing. Oh, it's the first red carpet that I'm covering. After a while, now this is with all due respect, and they probably feel the same way about doing interviews, right? Oh, I don't remember who it was or what I said, or I don't remember talking to this guy. It happens the same way, though. When I'm interviewing celebrities, I will remember talking to them. Right now, as I'm sitting here in our studio at our office, there's a wall of celebrities, of me on the red carpet with all these celebrities. I remember meeting them, but, like, what did we talk about? I have no idea. I have no idea. And then there's even times when somebody will ask me, oh, have you met so-and-so? Oh, have you interviewed so-and-so? I will say no, and then all of a sudden, I'll be reminded, or, like, it'll come back to me later and go, actually, yeah, I did meet them. I talked to them at such and such place. So, my story about Bob is, again, so he was promoting the ABC show. I was traveling at the time, and we had a scheduled time, but it changed that day. Not uncommon with celebrity interviews, right? I mean, let me tell you, sometimes it could be, okay, you're doing the interview Monday at 1 o'clock, and then that doesn't happen, and then suddenly it's rescheduled to Thursday. Or it was scheduled for Thursday, and it then is changed to Tuesday morning, and you're like, what the hell? So that doesn't surprise me. I was traveling, though, which is a little bit different. That's only happened a couple times. And so I was not in my hotel room when I got the email, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I can get back to my hotel. Like, I was traveling for work. We were taping travel shows at the time, so it's not like I was vacationing or anything. I literally was there on location taping radio stuff. And so then it's kind of like, okay, well, sure, we actually did have a break in the schedule at that moment anyway, so it was kind of good timing. And I was just like, well, when I'm on location taping radio shows, it's me talking and interviewing people in person. I'm not doing anything on the phone. So we're not set up to do that when I'm on the road, when I'm traveling. I can do phone interviews where I'm calling into a radio station. So if for example, when Prince died and I was in Mexico taping a tourism show, I just jump on my phone and I call stations, or they call me, and then we do them. For me, hosting the radio show and doing a celebrity interview, it's kind of like I talk into the microphone, which is plugged into a board, which is plugged into a computer, and that's how we have the sound. And that celebrity's phone line is an actual landline connected to our system. And so I was kind of like, oh crap, well, how do we do this? And so they said, the quietest place for you will be in your hotel bathroom. Go in there. Here's what we'll do. Do it on your cell phone. We'll connect it to the digital microphone that we have. We actually had like not a little like, not an MP3 recorder, whatever you call those little mini recorders. It wasn't one of those. It was actually a digital microphone. And so they said, we'll hook it up. You put it on speaker, and then we'll have the microphone recording it, and so hopefully it'll sound like you are in the studio because I will be talking to the microphone, and then Bob Saget will be on speakerphone on your cell phone. Not the best quality cell phone to cell phone, but that's the best we could do. So here I am, huddled in my hotel bathroom, door closed, because the room that I was in, people walking down the hall, or and then if all of a sudden the hotel room phone rings, or just whatever, and traffic outside, blah blah blah. So hide in the bathroom where there's no windows, close the door, hunker down. I'm actually motioning right now as I'm talking and saying it. And so there I was basically sitting on the seat down on the toilet, but I was sitting on the toilet and, doing this interview. Now, we were slated to talk for 7 or 8 minutes, which is just enough time when you're, again, crouched in a hotel bathroom. And what I remember talking about, we talked about the show. I remember talking about my hometown because Winnipeg in Canada has a crazy, winter weather. So I know that he had come through in the winter one time. So naturally, I've got to ask about that. And we just had some good laughs. We were scheduled to do 7 to 8 minutes. It ended up running. The interview itself was 24 minutes. We talked for well over a half hour. And so you don't often get that with this type of interview. Normally it's sometimes right when I say, okay, great, thanks, got it all, they hang up like right after I say that. They don't even kind of give me that last few minutes of like, oh, thanks, that was great, I appreciate your time. No, thanks. No, I'll just be like, great, thanks for joining us today. And they'll say thank you, and then they hang up right away. It was just great to have Bob. We chatted for several minutes before we started recording to kind of, break the ice and have that rapport, kind of get that groove going. And then we talked for several minutes after. And that's what I remember. Again, so the specifics of what he said, I don't remember, but I remember that being the vibe, that being the tone. I was laughing, he was laughing. He invited me to his show. I wasn't in Winnipeg when he came through, though, unfortunately. And that's what I remember. So when you see these tributes from other celebrities or comedians who actually did know him, and they say he was genuinely nice, he was a sweetheart, I can tell you the one interaction that I had with him, that's exactly how he was to me. So, and just quick, I know we've got to wrap this up, but just quickly, there's a small group of celebrities, when you think about it, that people don't really have a bad word to say about them. Betty was one of them, right? Betty White, people maybe, she wasn't controversial. She didn't have any, but, she wasn't political. She wasn't getting on her soapbox and telling people to do things. You just, either you liked her or you probably just didn't have an opinion on her, maybe, I guess is how to look at it. And same thing, like, let's say with Dolly Parton. And then when you think about Bob, it's kind of like, he didn't really have any controversies. I mean, he was a dirty comic, but that was kind of the shtick. I mean, that was his character as a comedian. And then he was America's dad, as everybody knew him on Full House. So it's kind of interesting that he's one of that small group that, and you don't realize things like that until they're dead, which is sort of gruesome to say, right? I mean, you know Bob Saget, everybody knows Bob Saget, and then once he's gone and people are reflecting on his life, and you're kind of like, yeah, he wasn't an asshole, but I don't know, I've never heard of him, telling off paparazzi or autograph seekers, and I'm an entertainment reporter, right? So I'm tuned into that stuff all the time. If there was anything bad, I would have heard about it. I would have talked about it on the radio. And so, yeah, I mean, you don't get that very often. Now, again, he's also from that generation of celebrity that 65 years old, so he's not one of these young, social media attitude people who are, that their shit doesn't stink or anything like that, right? I mean, he could very well have been being a celebrity as long as he's been, but he wasn't, and that's just what was refreshing. So those are my memories of Bob Saget. Again, like I said, my disclaimer at the beginning of the segment, I don't claim to, be texting buddies with him. He wouldn't even recognize me on the street if he passed me, and, that was just the way, that was the way that I felt after doing the interview with him. So another tragic story, right? It just seems like, all the time these are happening. So I did, by the way, speaking of Betty White, pick up the People magazine where it says Betty White turns 100 on the cover. I figured that's going to be a collector's item, don't you think? I mean, everybody knows now, like, especially when that magazine was like pumped out before Christmas, that they're not running the presses and everything like that. So it doesn't surprise me that was already, pre-written and in the can, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, now it's in stores 12 days. I see it's dated like 12 days after she died, and people get it that there's a lead time with those kinds of publications, but I bought one from the store, and by the way, it ended up, People magazine was like $8. That's the funny thing. They go and say, well, it's all the internet now. Well, maybe lower the price and people would be buying the actual magazine. I only bought it because I feel that's going to be a collector's item. It's worth something one day. Here's a magazine that's proclaiming she's 100 when she didn't make it. As tragic as that is. And by the way, happy 100th birthday, Betty, right? Because that's Monday. Monday? What's the date today? 14th today? You can't do the math. It's Friday morning. Monday. Thank you, Tim. In my ear, he's like, yes, Monday. All right. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
After all these years of chasing and exposing liars on social media, I'm amazed anybody still tries to pull a fast one on him. Joining us now to talk about the latest season of Catfish on MTV is Nev Schulman. Hi, Nev.
Hello.
Well, let's cut to the chase. You're calling me with Ace Rockwood's phone number, is that right?
Oh, exactly. or perhaps you might know Ace Appleby. Have you seen that?
Oh, I haven't seen that. Okay, I'll do it.
Of Catfish?
Nope, haven't seen that. But I'm always amazed by how little investigating these people do on their own. And then it shocks me because the people reach out. Obviously, they know about the show. They see what you do and how you do it to track these people down, but they still don't do it on their own. I mean, we can't complain, right? It gives you a job and it gives us something to watch. But I mean, what do you make of this after all these years?
I have to say that is a question that I frequently ask myself. And I've almost stopped actually asking people on the show because I know the answer, which is always, well, yeah, I watched the show and I've seen what you guys do, but it never really occurred to me, or I never felt like it was the right thing to do, or it felt weird to question this person. And I guess if I really think about it, one could relate it to the similar phenomenon of knowing that exercise and diet is good for you, and yet many people don't do it. Sometimes even when you know what's best for you, you still don't do it because it may not be the easiest or most desirable way to sort of move forward with your time. And so I think that's sort of partly it, because people, they know if they do the investigation, then it might lead to them finding out something they don't want to know, which could end up being a unfortunate result. So.
Yeah, it's almost like, you're not wanting to do the research to lead to that heartbreak, but at the end of the day, you're really only hurting yourself. You're only stringing yourself along by allowing it to happen. So are you still getting as many submissions as you were when the show first really took off? I guess I'm wondering, are people starting to figure it out on their own? I mean, do you know how many people are still reaching out all the time?
I don't have an exact number. I do have the email account that we set up, 10 years ago initially, which was just catfishneve@gmail.com. I still have that on my phone, and I see that I still always have somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 emails at any given time. But that's only one of the ways that people come to the show. There's also a casting email they can go directly to. There's also a website, catfishcasting.com, where you can fill out sort of your basic info and kind of like a survey. So, yes, I think, what's happened in the last 10 years is that while, on one hand, it's become easier to find out or detect if someone's catfishing you, I also think that it has become easier to catfish. There's more technology, there's more platforms, there's more just general use of the internet, and I think as a result, there's also more loneliness. I think a lot of people are spending less time interacting in the physical world and more time on the internet, which tends to make you vulnerable. So I think it's sort of, if anything, probably cases are on the rise.
That's what I wonder, though, is, like you said, are catfish getting sneakier, or are people getting catfished for, not doing their research? And like you say, there's just all these new platforms and things. But I would also take that one step further and say people have very high tolerance or low tolerance for BS. So it's like, cut to the chase. I want to know if you're real. If you're not, don't waste my time. Like, you'd think that people were starting to get impatient and not want to wait.
Yeah, I think the sort of the niche that we tend to serve on the show, because you're right, the technology has certainly allowed for much more sophisticated types of lies, and I think most of that technology and effort goes towards scams. Obviously, hacking and security breaches and phishing and all, like, that's all stuff that's definitely happening at a much higher and more sophisticated level, unfortunately. But what we deal with on the show, the evolution of the sort of human heart, is very slow-moving and in some cases, I think, stagnant. I mean, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, people have wanted the same basic thing. They want to be recognized as a meaningful, valuable person, and they want to feel love and affection and attention. And there are always going to be people who will think, or in some cases will have found that love on the internet, and unfortunately there will always be people who will present that love in a variation of its true form. And that's where kind of we find our sweet spot, is helping people who may know better and who certainly would probably give better advice to their friends than they're willing to give to themselves, but they're so committed to this idea that they deserve to be loved, and they do, and that this person sees them and recognizes them and appreciates them in a way that no one else does, and that they want that thing. And so it's a very specific type of person or sort of type of two people who engage in these types of, catfish relationships.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about you now for a second, because you've been doing this show long enough, and I think that I've been watching it long enough, that I can read your face. Like, you don't even have to say anything, and maybe it's just in the editing, but your face reads like, bitch, please, when you're hearing a story or somebody's telling you something. Are you, right? I mean, you've got a good track record for getting it right, but how soon are you able to determine this is a catfish?
It is tricky, because I do have to constantly remind myself that this happened to me. I was the hopeful who, against all odds, and even in many cases, sort of the perception of friends and family from the outside, believed that this person and this relationship I was having was going in a good direction, and there was a realistic and plausible outcome of success and love. And so I have to always sort of, humble myself and remember that, like, yes, some of this stuff is ridiculous and wildly obvious, but in the moment, in the when you're wrapped up in it, and it's been a long enough period of time that you're committed to it, it's hard to see that, or you may not want to see that. So, yeah, I do my best to keep a straight face, and obviously not be judgmental when it comes to these people and the decisions they've made. But inside sometimes I'm having mixed reactions.
Now, with the shutdowns, you guys are doing a lot of the investigations remotely. You did stock a phone booth recently, so I mean, is that a sign? Are you getting out more now and not staying put?
Yes, for sure. So this, it's hard to keep track. We filmed, I think, something like 44 episodes over the course of the pandemic, all of which were remote. But towards the end, we started doing sort of in-person remote episodes where Cammie and I were at least in the office together, so that, it felt a little bit more like we were in the world existing at the same time. And now we've started fully going back out into the world, on the road, in the way that the show had existed for many years before. So this current season is, I think, sort of a mix because we were transitioning. There was also, there was an issue where we started going on the road and then Delta happened, and so we kind of stopped, and then now we're back. It's just like, it's hard to know exactly what's happening at any given time on the show. But this season for sure, and in future seasons, which we're currently filming, we are fully back out, traveling and, knocking on doors and peering through windows.
That's the most fun, I think, isn't it?
I do think that was a sort of X factor that made the show fun to watch. Happy to get back to doing.
Absolutely. We've got to go, but speaking of future seasons, you and Max caused a stir with a post not too long ago. And everybody's speculating, wondering, gossiping, whatever word you want to use. Tell us, what's going on?
Well, so I love Cammie, and I could not have imagined a better sort of second official co-host for the show. Not just personally, because she's fun to be with and just makes me laugh, but I just think she also brings all the right skills and background to her job. That said, both Cammie and I agree that we would love if Max could somehow be involved with the show again, whether it's just to come on an episode as a ride-along or as a sort of stand-in for one of us if we have a conflict or a scheduling issue. Like, I'd love to get Max back on the show. I know the fans would love that too. And I'm constantly sort of pitching it to him. But, for the moment, he's pretty content with his career as a director and obviously and editing all these projects. But I'm always chipping away at him, and secretly I'm hoping that he has a weak moment or perhaps just needs a paycheck one day and decides he'll come back and grace us all with his sass and silver hair. So it's not impossible, but nothing on the books yet.
I think this is all just feeding his ego. Don't you think that's what this is doing, Neve? Come on now, let's be honest. No, he was great to watch on the show.
He could use a little ego boost from time to time. Who doesn't, right? Isn't that's what the show's all about.
Absolutely. And we're going to be watching. So Catfish is on MTV. Neve, when can we catch the show?
The show's on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock, followed actually immediately by the UK, the newly released UK version of Catfish with their own host. So if you really didn't get enough from 8 to 9, you can get a second English dose of Catfish from 9 to 10.
There you go. One quick thing I just remembered, that what people are doing now, I've heard, tell me if you've heard this as well, as you guys are doing the research and the investigation on the show, people at home are doing the same thing, Googling it. Have you heard of people doing that?
Yeah, sort of like follow-along research, yeah. I'm sure it happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, that just goes to show how people are into the show. It's like they're trying to be little mini Neves almost. Like, hey, I can figure it out before him.
I love it. In fact, we've mused and sort of tried to think if there's any possible way that we could do like a live episode of the show. We haven't figured out yet if it's possible, and I don't know that it is, but we've always kind of liked the idea of actually doing the investigation with people while they're watching and having them help us live. And
could you imagine, like,
maybe that's in the cards for future seasons.
Isn't it like Publishers Clearinghouse that shows up live to people's doors with balloons and things? Here's all of a sudden Neve showing up with a satellite truck outside your home, Mr. Catfish.
Yeah.
That would be great. I would love that. Sweeps. Do that for sweeps.
All right, well, we'll work on it.
All right, Neve, thanks so much for joining us. Great chatting with you.
All right, thank you.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here on The Scribble. Feel free to give me a shout anytime. It's always awesome hearing from you. The email address is live@jbonair.com. live@jbonair.com. Realizing that Neve gave out his email address on the show as well. So if you want to do a catfish investigation, reach out to Neve. I'll talk to you next week. Bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat,